Second grade, Miss Shannon here again. Today we're going to talk about our comprehension skill of the week, which is key details. Now, we have been practicing main topic and key details for the last 2 weeks. So we're continuing on with key details. But the special thing about this week is we're noticing key details in poetry instead of just regular fiction or nonfiction writing. So it'll be a little different. Remember that key details give important information about a poem. You can find important information in the words, pictures, or photos. This is the graphic organizer we will be using this week. It is very similar to the one we've used the past 2 weeks, only there is not a spot for main topic at the beginning. It's just identifying 3 key details. For this activity, you will need Your Turn Practice Book, page 93. So if you do not have this with you right now, please go find your practice book and turn to page 93 before moving on. Here is our poem. It is titled A Tortoise. This is on page 93 in your Turn Practice Book. I'm going to read the poem out loud, and then we're going to answer some questions about it. I'm also going to be thinking about what are key details as I read. A tortoise. You will find that a tortoise is a mild fellow. It lives a life that's calm and mellow. A tortoise can live for quite a long span. In fact, it may even live longer than a man. You'll never find a tortoise at sea. It lives on land. That's where it should be. Would a tortoise be able to win a race? Not since it moves at such a slow pace. It has 4 stumpy legs and 4 tortoise feet. For a snack, plants are its favorite treat. Wow, second graders, before I move on to page 2, I think we've learned a lot of information and facts about tortoises from this poem already. So I'm going to be thinking about some details that we learned about tortoises. And I learned that you'll never find a tortoise at sea. It lives on land. Now that's different from the turtles we've read about in previous weeks. Turtles live in the ocean. This is a tortoise, and the tortoise lives on land. That's a key detail or fact that I learned about a tortoise from this poem. So I'm going to write it in on my detail graphic organizer. Now, we are not filling this out together right now. I am just showing an example for this story. We will fill out this graphic organizer for another poem later in the week. But I'm showing you how I can identify details as I read to help me answer my comprehension questions after we read the story. So my detail is tortoises live on land. Let's continue looking. Were there any other pieces of information you learned about a tortoise from this part of the poem, second graders? I learned what tortoises like to eat. Can you find that part in the poem? There it is at the very bottom. It says, for a snack, plants are its favorite treat. Tortoises eat plants. That's a fact, a key detail that I've just learned. So I could write it in my detail number 2, tortoises eat plants. Let's continue reading. Some creatures have feathers and some have hair. But what does our friend tortoise wear? A tortoise wears a hard outer shell that always works to serve it well. When a tortoise doesn't know where to hide, it just pulls its head and 4 limbs inside. Even though a tortoise may be shy, it can walk around with its head held high. For a tortoise is a marvel of the animal pack. It carries its home right on its back. Tortoises are pretty cool, second graders. I have to think of my third detail about a tortoise. Well, I learned about its hard outer shell and then it carries it on its back. That's pretty neat and unique for an animal. So I said it has a hard outer shell. Tortoises have hard outer shells. So as I read, I was thinking about details I was learning about tortoises. Now I'm ready to go answer some of our comprehension questions on the next page. This is on page 95. It says, reread the passage and answer the questions. Now, second graders, you can go back and reread on your own. I did just read the story out loud to you as well. Number 1 asks, how long can a tortoise live? I think we need to go back into the text and find some evidence to support our answer. Can you find the spot in the poem that talks about how long a tortoise can live? I can see in the second stanza, so a stanza is a group of lines, the second stanza that says, a tortoise can. A tortoise can live for quite a long span. In fact, it may even live longer than a man. So some tortoises can live even longer than humans. Whoa, that's a really long time. But I went back and found that information in the story to support my answer. Right there. It may live longer than man. So my answer, I wrote, a tortoise can live longer than humans. Make sure you press pause and play again when you're ready to move on to number 2. Number 2, where does a tortoise live? Do you remember, second graders? I think this was one of the key details I included in my graphic organizer. My first detail, I said tortoises live on land. So while I was reading that poem, I was filling out my details. That's actually helped me in answering my comprehension questions. A tortoise lives on land, not in the sea like the turtles we read about last week. And number 3, how does a tortoise use its shell? Do you remember? That's right. It pulls its limbs, which means its arms and its legs, and its head inside its shell when it has to hide. Can you find the stanza that tells us that? Remember that a stanza is a group of lines. In the third stanza, that starts with the word when. When a tortoise doesn't know where to hide, it just pulls its head and 4 limbs inside. So it pulls its limbs inside when it's scared or wants to hide. So I wrote, a tortoise uses its shell to hide. Great job, second graders. Remember to pause and then press play when you're finished writing in your sentences. Please double check for capital letters and periods at the end of your sentences. Thanks for working so hard and reading this fun poem about tortoises with me. And remember that we will continue to identify key details in poems as we move throughout the week. Great work today, second graders.